I call Sue Moroney.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. When it comes to health and safety at work, when corners are cut, people die. This government is cutting corners with this law. People will die. It's as simple as that. People will die. Because that government could not help itself. It could not help itself in the face of the evidence from the Royal Commission, in the face of all of the hard work that had been done by its own independent task force that it had put in place. It still could not go through with putting the very best protections in place for working people. This bill, in its third reading, shows the National Party reverting to type, absolutely reverting to type, because when this bill came into the House for its first reading, it had consensus right across the Parliament. Highly unusual, but everyone put politics aside because we believed that we wanted to do the very best to protect people in their workplaces. So that's where we started from. But through the process, the National Party clearly decided to put politics before people. They clearly made that decision. And, Mr Speaker, I was on the Select Committee in hearing this piece of legislation, and I saw the moment that politics entered the room. I saw that precise moment. And in fact, I did a tweet. I didn't know at the time how forward-looking that tweet was, but I tweeted something like, "Whoa, Hurricane Judith just entered our Select Committee room. She caused a storm and then she walked out and calm was resumed." And that's effectively what it was like. That's exactly what it was like, because Judith Collins, who was not actually a permanent member of the committee, came on temporarily, saw what the Select Committee was doing, its very good work in developing a comprehensive law around health and safety, and started attacking the minister, started attacking the officials, had a go at everyone in the room, and then the next thing we know, the National Party is starting to backpedal on putting the very best provisions and protections forward as recommended by the Royal Commission and the Independent Task Force. We know that the National Party has decided to put politics ahead of the safety of people at work, because it's absolutely obvious what happened next. The decision in the National Party caucus room was to try and remove health and safety representation for groups of workers in their workplace. And I want to spend a little bit of time just reminding people what we're talking about here. We are not talking about a business having to spend any more money employing any other person. We are not talking about a business having to get a health and safety specialist in, a consultant in, any of those things that actually businesses are busy doing right now because of the hash that this government's made of that bill. We're talking about workers, if they wanted to, deciding to elect one of their own, someone already doing the job, someone already paid by the employer to do the work, who understands what goes in and day out in that workplace, one of their own to be elected as a health and safety representative. And then for that person to get 2 days training so they could understand what their role is, understand the legislation, and ensure that the workers had a voice when it came to their own health and safety in that workplace. What is so hard about that? What is so hard about that? But here's the worst thing about this story, is that all the international research and evidence says that this is the real key to it. Getting genuine worker participation, where workers can have a voice in what goes on in their workplace, is the key to good health and safety in the workplace. But this government could not help themselves. Couldn't help themselves, and they got rid of it. But they didn't get rid of it for everyone, so we are reduced to arguing about who is deserving of the very best protection at work and who is not. And what that government decided was that people who work in workplaces with fewer than 20 employees are not deserving of having the very best health and safety participation in their workplace. That's what they decided. But then they made another gaffe. They made a further gaffe, and they decided that, oh, this might look pretty bad for them because a lot of the workplaces with employees fewer than 20 are actually in our most dangerous industries of forestry, of mining, of contracting out companies, of farming. And so they decided, well, we won't. We'll make sure the high-risk companies, no matter how many employees they have, will have to have a health and safety representative if the workers ask for one. And that's where it really started to unravel, because in their determination to make sure that their support base in the farming sector was excluded, they went about manipulating the data and finding a figure that worked for them so that they could find a threshold that excluded farming. Well, what a shambles, because in doing that, they ended up excluding a whole lot of areas that clearly weren't very high risk at all, and including a whole lot of areas that were high risk. And so they made a complete shambles of it. It is their own fault, and no amount of consultation is going to fix that problem up, because what went wrong was they put politics before people. They put politics before people. No amount of tweaking that bit of nonsense is actually going to make a blind bit of difference to the problem that exists from the outset, and that is that everyone in every workplace, no matter what their industry, no matter what their occupation, no matter how many people are employed on that workplace, no matter what part of New Zealand, should have the best access to health and safety in their workplace. And that's what we should have learnt from the Pike River mine situation. Mr Speaker, during the course of the debate, I was criticised for daring to bring a replica urn into the House while we debated the issue, because some of the members opposite believed it caused them offence. They felt offended at having a replica urn in the House while we debated this issue. Well, Mr Speaker, I acknowledge that they felt offended, but imagine the offence caused to those families who have lost their loved ones, who believed that this law was going to fix the problem so that no other families would go through what they'd gone through. Imagine how offended they felt. Imagine how offended they felt as they sat up here in the gallery and listened and watched that government weasel its way out of providing the best health and safety representation possible for workers in workplaces. That is genuine offence, Mr Speaker, not having to debate an issue because of replica urns in the House. Mr Speaker, I'm wearing today, as many of us are, a yellow ribbon. I hope that doesn't cause offence to anyone. This is the yellow ribbon that actually reminds us about the 29 men who died in the Pike River mine. I once saw the Prime Minister wear this yellow ribbon around Pike River mine. I haven't seen him wear it in the last few weeks while we've been debating this issue, but he should have been, because this is a yellow ribbon that reminds us that those families want their men home. They want to bring their men home, and it's this yellow ribbon that symbolises that. Mr Speaker, there was a once-in-a-generation lifetime opportunity to get this right. When I spoke in the first reading of this debate on this bill, I recalled speaking last year on a piece of legislation that this House passed that we did all agree on, I believe, that was designed to actually regulate the mining sector. And it has the Pike River mine in the name of that Act of Parliament now. And at the time, I remember standing up and saying, please let us never forget. We're all in agreement now, but please never let us forget that deregulation at work kills people. Never let us fall into this trap again of thinking that deregulation is a good thing in our workplaces, because it kills. And I thought at the time that I was saying to Parliament, look, let's not have amnesia in a decade's time. Let's not get it wrong, as time goes on. I'm gobsmacked that just a year later, we seem to have forgotten the lesson already. This bill could have been so good, and sadly, the government has trashed it.